The Professor, Coda, a real story. This story is inspired by a true story of a professor. In 2011, Vincent finally got his dream job. He got the position on the teaching faculty at a famous institute in one of the cities famous for being a hub of education. He reached the city a few days after receiving his offer letter, but he was facing an issue in finding an apartment for himself. Since he was a bachelor, nobody was keen to rent out their place to him. It had been 4 days, but Vincent wasn't able to find a suitable apartment. Eventually, he got an apartment with the help of a broker. It was surprising that while he was having a hard time convincing people to rent him their apartment, he got this place without breaking any sweat. But he didn't think too much about it and moved to his new place immediately. The first few days were amazing. Vincent was getting to know people of Coda and was very excited about the job. Just like every day, Vincent left for home after finishing his lectures, and because of being very tired, he went straight to bed. But something happened that night that no one could have imagined. When Vincent was in his sleep, he felt as if an evil spirit was sitting on top of him. Vincent felt that the spirit's face had come really close to his face, so close that he could feel its breath. Vincent's restlessness grew, and he suddenly got up in a huff. He switched on the lights, but there was no one else in the room apart from Vincent. But the window was open, and because of the strong wind, the curtains were shaking vigorously. The room was eerily cold, but Vincent stood there, all sweaty in nervousness. He thought that it must have been a nightmare. When he looked at the clock, it was 2:30 at night, and there was no sign of sleep in Vincent's eyes anymore. Because he wasn't able to sleep, he started reading a book at the study table and preparing for his lecture the next day. Soon after, Vincent felt as if an evil spirit was hovering behind him. When he looked back, he didn't see anything like that. Throughout the night, the slightest of noise would make him look around, only for him to find nothing. Because of this, he could neither sleep nor could he read peacefully. Vincent's next few nights also went the same way. He would have the same nightmare and wake up in the middle of the night again. He would then spend the remaining night in anxiety. This was driving him crazy. One evening when Vincent returned home, he found that all his books had fallen from the bookshelf, and there was ink spilled all over his notes. He got really scared seeing this. He saw the window of the room was open, so he thought that probably his books would have fallen because of strong wind. He picked up his books and started organizing them back on his shelf when he again felt that an evil spirit was hovering behind him. When he turned back, he was shocked. He saw that a 16 or 17-year-old girl was standing at his door. She kept staring at him. The girl had messy hair, big dark circles under her eyes, and her clothes were dusty. There was a very deep cut on her neck. Suddenly, the girl tilted her head and smiled at Vincent. Her eyes went white, and then she suddenly disappeared. Vincent was baffled and couldn't make any sense of what just happened. He thought he was losing his mind, and all of this was just his hallucination. Frightened, he went down to the security guard, but the guard wasn't there. He then went to the general store opposite his building. In the last few days, Vincent had had a lot of friendly talks with the store owner. Seeing Vincent's condition, the store owner asked him what had happened. He told him that he didn't like it here in the city, and he felt that he was losing his sanity. Hearing this, the store owner asked him which apartment was he living in that building. When Vincent told him his apartment number, he was left shocked. He asked Vincent if he knew about the history of that apartment. Vincent was clueless. The store owner then told him that a few years ago, that apartment was occupied by a mother and her daughter. And due to the pressure of studies, the girl killed herself by suicide. Since that day, the place had been vacant. Listening to all this, Vincent's heart started racing. Whatever he had experienced so far was not just a mere hallucination. It was all true. He was shivering out of fear, but that night he had to go back to that same apartment. He somehow managed to go back in the house to spend the rest of his night. He placed a few pictures of God in his room and decided that he would pack his bags and leave the place for good first thing in the morning. Thinking this, he fell asleep after popping a sleeping pill. Suddenly, the fan started making weird noises, which woke Vincent up. When he opened his eyes, he seemed to skip a heartbeat. He saw the same 16 or 17-year-old girl's dead body hanging from the fan, which then suddenly disappeared. After that, Vincent didn't care for his stuff or what time it was. He just ran out screaming from the house. He checked into a hotel to spend the remainder of the night and called his landlord to give him a piece of his mind. The next day, with the help of a friend, he vacated that house and moved to a place far away from there. Creepy story, isn't it? Make sure you subscribe to Bloody Monday for more such stories every week.